Today, you will have a history lesson unlike any other. For today, from the pages of history, I stand before you. What is it you think you know about me? Do you think I'm the first one and only Cleopatra? I am Cleopatra the Seventh. Did you think that I should look like Elizabeth Taylor? I was born in Egypt. Should my skin be fair or sun-kissed? Today you will know me. You will know if I'm a temptress or a stateswoman, if I love Julius Caesar, if I love Mark Antony. Today, together, we shall gallop through the history of ancient Egypt, visit Alexandria, the most magnificent city of the ancient world, and walk through my life, the life of Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt. Tell me, out loud, do not be shy, on which continent does Egypt sit? Africa, of course. To the north, the crystal blue waters of the Mediterranean. To the east, the Red Sea, breastfed by the Nile. Nile, the longest river in the world, and one of the very few to flow north. Did you ever wonder why? You see, in the south, it is high and mountainous. In the north, it is low sea level. The great Nile flows north because water flows down, indeed, and I float on the Nile on my magnificent barge, as it is festooned with purple sails, purple awnings, inlaid with gold, lapis, and ivory. As I float on the Nile, it is very good for my people to see me. I present myself as Isis, the goddess of love, benevolence, protection, and motherhood. My people can see me, and I see my people. I watch as they plant seeds into the rich sediment soil left by the dependable floods of the Nile, up from which grows abundance, so much that Egyptians have time for higher learning, for art, for architecture that stand millennia. Indeed, wealth, abundance, continuing abundance. In the south, a pharaoh emerges wearing a white hajjet or crown. In the north, red hajjet or crown. The north and the south, Upper and Lower Egypt, are combined into one, the United Egypt. It is through this United Egypt that we shall take our gallop and see three broad divisions: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. The Old Kingdom, the glory days of Egypt, where Ra, the sun god, watches the pyramids being built. Tell me, has anyone here in your travels had the opportunity to go to Egypt? I thought I recognized several of you. We see 6 here. There have been 130 pyramids uncovered. The greatest, the Great Pyramid of Giza, standing 455 feet tall. The tallest man-made structure on the planet for 3,800 years. Nothing taller. The Old Kingdom, a time of divine kingship. Our kings and our gods are one and the same. In a very rare time of drought, fighting changes, ushering in the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. New rulers, fantastic rulers from Nubia, continuing the prosperity of Egypt. A time when the great god Ra meets the new god Amun, and the super god Amen-Ra now watches over Egypt. When you see an animal's head and a man's body, you are looking at an Egyptian god. Do you see his hand? He holds an ankh. Here is a closer look. Tell me out loud, what does that symbolize? What do you believe that represents? everlasting life. An animal's head, a man's body, holding an ankh. You are looking at an Egyptian god, and now you know by the combined headdress that you are looking at the united Egypt, the Middle Kingdom, continuing the prosperity of Egypt, building tombs beyond the imagination, creating art of unsurpassed beauty. Next, the New Kingdom, a time to expand, a time to fight, a time that I must introduce you to someone. You see, to introduce you to myself, I must first introduce you to him. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great defeated Parthia, had the largest empire the world has ever known. Alexander the Great never lost a battle. He established 30 cities throughout the Mediterranean, 18 of which are rather easy to find, as he named them all after himself. Alexandria. One he named Bucephalus for his war horse of legend. One man, 40,000 soldiers, marching 20,000 miles over 12 years. The world has not seen his like. Alexander the Great once encountered the island city of Tyre, entirely walled by double, massive stone walls, thought to be impenetrable, situated a quarter mile into the Mediterranean. Alexander the Great would not relinquish his desire for it, and so he had his men, brick by brick, stone by stone, log by log, build a causeway into the Mediterranean, essentially marching his men across and taking the city. There were cities that fell at the mere name Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great died very young, very unexpectedly. On his deathbed, he was asked, "Who shall take your place?" His answer, among his dying words, the answer, "The strongest." And yet not one man was strong enough to control this vast empire. To his three most loyal generals went the three largest tracts of land. One to Ptolemy, his childhood companion, his personal taste tester, trusted general, and personal relation. To Ptolemy went all of Egypt. Ptolemy came to Egypt, Alexandria, in Egypt, crowned himself Ptolemy. Excuse me, the time machine must be rather dry. Crowned himself Ptolemy the First, thus ushering in the Ptolemaic age of Egypt. 2.5 years was spent on his funeral and funeral procession. Alexander the Great was placed in a massive golden sarcophagus and taken with great ceremony back to Greece, where the funeral procession was hijacked by none other than Ptolemy and his men. The sarcophagus stolen, brought back to Alexandria in Egypt, the sarcophagus sold, an army purchased, and a new sarcophagus made of alabaster. It's like glass. I can see him. I visit Alexander the Great often. I relate to his greatness. I am a Ptolemy. I live in the city in which he designed. Alexander the Great, a visionary, he would take handfuls of grain and walk along, marking where he wanted his roads and buildings to be. Quickly, before the birds snatched it up, his architects, engineers, and builders made note of what he wanted and where. Alexandria is a buzzing place of commerce where Greeks, Jews, and Egyptians live, work, and trade. I wish that I could take you with me to see the Alexandria of my time. Magnificent. Yet for you to see it today, you must go underwater as it fell to massive earthquakes after my time. What I see are red, pink, lavender granite, pulsating with robust color. Egyptian masterpieces, Egyptian copies of the Ptolemaic design. The statuary throughout Alexandria balloons to hyperbolic dimensions. There are 40-foot statues of Cleopatra I, Cleopatra II flank the harbor. Great black, glossy, hawk-headed sphinx guard the temple. From grand to magnificent to sublime throughout Alexandria. This is the Copic Way. 90 feet wide. 8 chariots can ride abreast. The side streets are 20 feet wide. The streets are laid in stone, professionally drained and partially lit at night. It taxes the vocabulary of visitors trying to describe what they experience when they come to Alexandria. Never have eyes laid on such a city. Magnificent in every way, filled with homes, shops, bathhouses, government buildings, institutions, temples, places of learning, and dotted with 400 large and small theaters, which speak to the affluence of the people of Alexandria. What I see is color. Color abounds throughout the city. Grandly carved columns, richly painted services, awnings of wonderful color. Everywhere one rests one's eyes, color is seen. Alexandria is home to the Library of Alexandria. You see, Alexander the Great wanted Alexandria in Egypt to be a receptacle for all the knowledge in the world. If you arrived as a visitor by beast or by boat, you would be searched. If a papyrus was found of any nature, it would be confiscated, brought to the library, copied, and perhaps returned to you. Manuscripts of every discipline, science, mathematics, treaties, inventories, everything that's recorded is brought to the library. What appears to be a dark trim is actually a lattice work of wood into which the papyrus are stored, hundreds of thousands of them. It is a marvelous way for me to come up in a society that educates the highborn females, where knowledge is prized. You see, Alexander the Great was personally tutored by Aristotle himself and knew that knowledge is power. I am hungry for both and have a great appreciation for knowledge. Another of the wonders of the ancient world can be seen from my palace, the lighthouse of Alexandria. This lighthouse is the lighthouse that is modeled for your modern lighthouses today. The world's first skyscraper going straight up, 388 feet up. Firewood is carried, 388 feet down, ashes are carried. For magnificent fire that is reflected off a bronze mirror, the smoke and light may be seen 100 miles out into the Mediterranean. It is this lighthouse that greeted the great Gaius Julius Caesar when he arrived. Each stone is covered in molten lead to help withstand the pounding of the sea. Alas, it fell to earthquakes after my time, those stones repurposed. The lighthouse, the library, and now the lives of the people of Alexandria. There was a journal that was confiscated, and the writings within this journal said that the traveler observed that women urinate standing up and the men sitting down. This was written, I believe, to express the depths of the differences this traveler experienced. Everything seemed backward. The Great Nile flows north. Seeds are planted in the fall. Throughout the Mediterranean on the loom, the threads waft up. Here they waft down. But most stunning of all In Alexandria, women are free. They're free to buy, sell, own, and inherit property. They are free to own businesses, perfumeries, fig groves, fisheries. Women are free to choose their own husbands. They're free to divorce them as well. Women are free to make decisions over their children. Women, the high-born females, are educated. In other parts of the Mediterranean, in Rome in particular, it is law only to raise the firstborn daughter. The others may be left. There are places designed for this. If you would want someone to take your child as their own or as a slave, it would be bundled. If you wanted it to perish quickly, it would be left exposed. Who here is a firstborn daughter? Ah, I feel sorry for the rest of you. In contrast, in Greece, the women have no social or political rights whatsoever. They must remain under the guardianship of a male for their entire lives. They have no right to choose their husbands. They have no legal rights over their own children. They're required to stay at home, provide for their family, weave wool, and guard their chastity. They find the women of Alexandria to be wildly barbaric. Egypt, dazzling in every respect, and also entirely by birthright, mine. Every man, woman, and child, everything that's grown, everything that's manufactured, everything that's harvested belongs to me. Revenue flows into my palace hourly, around the clock. I am the wealthiest person in the known world. I am surrounded by a buzz of servants. The buzz can turn into a swarm: doorkeepers, lamplighters, the royal pearl setter, the royal silver steward, notaries, pages, historians. My slaves have slaves. A mid-level tax-collecting bureaucrat in my government travels with a retinue of 10. In my palace, in one day, 6 pigs may be roasted at different times throughout the day. So the meat is ready when I am ready, and not before. Tell me, do you recognize these? These are the symbols of Egyptian power. They are, of course, symbolic. Tell me out loud, what do you think this symbolizes? A shepherd's crook, yes, thank you, indeed. A shepherd's crook to represent benevolence, care, and protection. What does this remind you of? A whip. Yes, punishment is necessary for control. Holding these allows me to control a people and a nation. But how is it that I came to hold them? I was raised to co-rule with my father, Ptolemy the 12th. Taught, trained, and raised to rule. However, my father, in a crushing blow, died. I was then required to marry my brother. My thought exactly. I 18, my brother 10. This is not a practice among the Egyptian people, although it is a practice among the Egyptian gods and therefore the Egyptian pharaohs. But my brother is a bug of a brother, a prepubescent, puppeted boy being controlled by stupid, hideous, power-hungry advisors that want me exiled from Alexandria. Why? because they know that I could and would take over. I've been trained by the finest minds in the Mediterranean. I have an understanding of leadership, of power. I can raise a fleet, lead an army, reward loyalty, punish treachery. I am a linguist. I speak 9 languages, 6 of them quite fluently. Camp. Yes, Camp, my brother, has me expelled from Alexandria at a time when the great Gaius Julius Caesar is going to arrive. I am 200 miles away from the palace. I need to have audience with Caesar. My brother wants to curry favor with Caesar and prepares a gift. What would you prepare for the great Caesar? My brother gives him the head of his enemy, Pompey, in a basket 3 days old. Caesar was displeased. I would have known. I must have audience with Caesar. But how? One step back into the palace, my brother would certainly have me killed, very convenient for him. It comes to me in a flash of an idea. I have my most trusted man row me back in a 2-man skiff, at points pulling it through mosquito-infested swamps. He delivers me outside of the palace, where I prepare myself, dress in my finest robes, cleanse my skin. I lie down on a beautifully woven rug. I'm rolled up within the rug. It's hoisted upon his broad, strong shoulders, and I'm brought to Caesar to unroll myself as a gift of a rug. I'm hidden within. Here, poetry, art, myth say that I enrolled myself naked in front of Caesar. But now that you know me personally, I ask you, would I employ such a tactic? Someone say no. No, I would not offer myself no retreat such as that. The advantages of my 21-year-old self are quite evident. I 21, he 52 at the time. I was indeed not naked. I want him to see that I'm clearly the better ruler over my brother. I want him to know my ambition, my skills at rhetoric, my ability to lead. He likes my audacity. He likes my skills. He likes the nerve and the strength that I had to do what I did, to take the risk that I took to see him. He chooses to have his men fight my brother's men in a battle. 6 months of battle, during which time we are barricaded into the palace together. At the end of 6 months, my brother drowns in the Nile trying to escape. During that 6 months, we continue our understanding of one another. And I deliver a boy to Caesar, Caesarion, as is the way of his men. I place the child at his feet. If, in the presence of his men, he picks up the child, he claims it as his own, he not only picks up the child, but raises it over his head in my triumph. Caesarion, our son. I see us, Caesar and myself, as leaders of the world. I invite him to remain with me. I entertain him on my barge. I see this as a time of building a compatible dream. But as men, they think that I have him drugged into a stupor. They think that I'm magic. They think I have him under a spell. Why would a Roman general remain with that Egyptian whore? That is what Cicero wrote of me. I can't help it that he prefers the warmth of my embrace, the beauty that is Egypt. Grumbling becomes too loud to ignore. Caesar must go back and stand as a victor over his military triumphs in a parade called a triumph. I decide to travel with him, myself and our son, back to Rome, where my sister, Arsinoe, appears in the parade, bound in golden chains. The people, however, of Rome hate me. They mistrust me very deeply. Caesar, in order to curry favor with his people, have a golden statue erected of me at the Temple of Venus. But that causes the people to hate me even more. You see, where Rome is austere and controlled, Egypt, Alexandria, is colorful and fantastic. The women in Rome wear white linen shifts. I surround myself with color, an abundance of color. I remain with Caesar at his country estate. On a day, it was in March, Caesar leaves for the Senate. I kiss him as he leaves. The kiss itself was overcast as the day. He got into a sedan chair being carried by 8 men, brought to the Senate. He disembarked in front of the stairs, surrounded by senators, some friends, some not. He climbed the stairs and sat in his golden chair at 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, his tunic was pulled as a signal to begin. A dagger was thrust at his sinewy neck, which he turned to avert, to be caught on the other side. Caesar was stabbed 23 times by 21 men, each in their turn. They left his body bloody and slumped on the floor of the Senate and ran out into the streets, crying that Caesar's dead, causing riots. No one had enough courage to touch his body for hours. It was finally brought to me, and I stood over his body, pregnant with our next child, my friend, my protector, my beloved. What belongs to Caesar now belongs to my son. I must go back to Alexandria and co-rule with my son. He must learn. The world will see. Do you remember my brother drowned in the Nile? I was then required to marry my second brother. So my first order of business was to have him poisoned and out of the way. Along with anyone who did not support me. I can't have subversive Greeks living in Alexandria. It was a bloodbath. It was also entirely necessary, lasting 2.5 years. At that point, a general came from Rome. Tell me his name. Marcus Antonius, Mark Antony. He is the general that has risen through the ranks to take vengeance on Caesar's death. And what better way to take vengeance than to continue Caesar's military campaigns? To do that, he needs men. He needs equipment, he needs fleets, he needs money. He needs me. And I need a friend in Rome to help me get what belongs to my son. I set my keen eyes on Mark Antony. I entertain him on my barge. I want him surrounded by luxury. I want everything that he touches to be soft. I have an entire barge covered with 2 feet of flower petals. When they become trampled, fresh may be raked from the edges to the center. I want every morsel of food that touches his lips to be the most exotic found. I want his skin cleansed with purified oil. I want him bathed in goat's milk. I want his ears filled with the sound of music, his eyes filled with color, beauty, dance. I want his heart filled with longing, and his mind filled with the understanding of my extreme wealth. Which is why I have my barge followed by a flotilla of these. They are supply ships, each one laden with treasure. As we cruise up the Nile, I want him to see that I am the first pharaoh in almost 300 years to learn to speak Egyptian, and the people's devotion to me for it, my general's devotion to me. I want him to see that I give money to the temples. I place flowers on the sacred bull. I want him to know a woman that knows how to lead and a woman that knows how to love. And yet, again, grumbling from Rome, another Roman general spending time with that Egyptian woman. You see, in Rome, they want their generals to sleep on a mat and eat stale bread. They believe the trappings of wealth make a man weak, that gem studs and gold plate belong on breastplates and war armor. As a matter of fact, Julius Caesar reenacted a sumptuary law where luxury items are illegal in Rome. There were dinner parties that were disrupted in the middle if the tableware was too ornate. I live levels above opulence. I have Antony's love, I have his devotion, and I have his children, twins. Cleopatra, Selene, Alexander, Helios. Selene and Helios, the sun and the moon. I have another with Antony, Ptolemy Philadelphus. Antony and I are married, which causes a slight problem because in Rome he's already married. Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, sister Octavia. Antony is married to Octavia. When Octavian gets word that Antony and I are married, that Antony has given the title of King of Kings to Caesarion, that he's given our children properties and titles, some properties that are not yet conquered, he's furious and declares war on me, not on Egypt, on Cleopatra, engaging our naval forces at Actium. Antony's men desert him. This battle at Actium is lost. I send word to Antony that I am dead. Facing his military defeat and my death, Antony stabs himself in the heart. Appropriate death for a Roman experiencing defeat, but he missed his heart, and he lay writhing in pain on the floor, asking his friends, trusted friends, to end him. One by one they left the room, refusing, until he was left alone with his most devoted servant. 'Twas the servant he raised the blood-soaked dagger in his blood-soaked hand, commanding him to finish. The servant took the dagger and thrust it into his own heart, rather than to kill Antony. Meanwhile, I've barricaded myself up in a mausoleum with a hoard of treasure, intending to burn it rather than to let Octavian have it. Octavian commands that I present myself. Commands me. He'll have me paraded in golden chains. When Antony lives, he asks to be taken to the mausoleum to see my dead body. When brought there, he discovers that I am not dead. I can't open even for him. He is placed on a board. A rope is lowered. My two servants and I are the only souls in the mausoleum. It is tied onto the board, and the three of us, myself included, with my own hands, we pull the rope which is tied onto the board on which he's been placed through an opening, and he's before me, dying. As is the Egyptian way, I rent and I rip and I tear my garments. I scrape and pound my breasts until they bleed. I fall to my knees. I call him husband. I call him love. I call him master. He dies in my arms. I have lost all. I have lost Antony. I have lost Egypt. I must now die a Pharaoh on earth. I have my 2 trusted servants anoint my skin until it glows, dress me in my finest robes, position the diadem on my head. And here, once again, myth, art, legend say that I had an asp snuck in, allowing it to bite my breast, causing my death. But now that you know me personally, I can tell you, an asp is a notoriously sluggish snake. An asp would never do. Snuck in a basket of figs, some believe it was a cobra having enough venom to kill 10 men, really, a cobra, being snuck in a basket of figs, hardly. It was poison. Poison with a base of hemlock that I concocted myself. I administered it to myself and my 2 servants in quick succession. I took the crook and the flail, you know, are the symbols of Egyptian power. I held them in one hand at my right side. In my left hand, I held letters written to me by Caesar. I closed my eyes. It was Octavian that found me and pressed that in my death, as in my life, I staged it and controlled it beautifully. Antony and I were buried together. When is this on the timeline, you may wonder? 30 years later, Jesus is born. And now you know the good, the bad, and the ugly, as it were, of me, Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt. My dear friends, I have rather an admission to make. You see, when I dress as Cleopatra, I do rather think the thoughts of Cleopatra, but when I take it off, why then? Oh, I become plain old Martina again. Thank you. I'm an educational entertainer. I come from Northern Illinois. Evidently, Daryl scours the countryside looking for wonderful programs to bring to you. And at first I said, oh, that's too far, I can't. And he talked me into it. Now, when I'm finished, I always want to thank my mother because she makes all my costumes, and she made this. Now, let me tell you, you never stop needing your mother. You see, my mother said, honey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put the belt right here because it's going to make you look slimmer because your waist is out here. She made this out of bathing suit material. I don't know whose bathing suit, but it's washable and lovely. So I do many different programs. I do the 6 Wives of Henry VIII. I do Mae West. She's hysterical. Luella Parsons, Edith Head, Marie Antoinette, and it's a fun way to learn about history. So I say that so you know I am not a Cleopatraologist, but I've done lots of research for you for this program, and I'd like to entertain a few questions. But before we do that, let me ask you one. This is what's asked to me often. I'm going to ask you, raise your hand. Do you think she loved Julius Caesar? Do you think she loved Mark Antony? Yes. Do you think she loved both? Yes, I do too. I think she did. She, like all of us, we have no idea what's ahead of us. When she met Caesar, she thought that they were going to lead the world. Now, this hierarchy is very, very tight at the top. She could meet him in social status. She met him intellectually. Caesar was very heady. He would have a historian travel with him to write history as he made history. And she could keep up with him in that regard. She thought that they were going to lead the world. And I think that when he died, that she was indeed devastated. Now, the first child she had with Caesar was cesarean, which has no relation to our cesarean procedure of birth today. Some people have said that Caesar was born by cesarean section. That's not true. Other people, I've seen it written that they thought she delivered by cesarean section. Also not true, but there was cesarean in those days. Never did the woman live for highborn children. So cesarean, the little boy, meaning little Caesar. Now, at this time in history, a young man is of age at 15. So at 15 years old, Caesarion was assassinated because of the parents of Cleopatra and Caesar, he would have been too powerful. Now, remember when she stood over his dead body, she was pregnant with the next child? Well, she went back to Alexandria to co-rule with her son. I suppose, planning a murderous rage is stressful. Well, she lost that baby on the way. So now she meets later, after being in Alexandria and ruling for 2.5 years, Mark Antony. Now, initially, he was told by Caesar, when you need money, when you need supplies, when you need equipment, when you need weaponry, go to Egypt because they've got everything. And so he went for resources. She saw there would be a great advantage in him because she needs an ally in Rome to help get what belongs to her son. So they both had reasons, but I do think they fell in love. I really do. And for a couple of reasons. Number one, in Rome, there was no, when you kiss your husband in public? Thank you. I just blanked. PDA, public display of affection, didn't happen in Rome. As a matter of fact, there was a Roman senator that was reprimanded for kissing his wife right in front of their 22-year-old daughter. Now, here's Antony. He's at a table with his generals. They're having a meeting. He sees Cleopatra through an open window. He gets up from the table, jumps out the window, runs over to the litter on which she's being carried, and he starts doing pull-ups to show off his strength. And then, he kisses her right in front of his men. And they think he's got to be out of his mind. He has to be drugged into a stupor. She's got him under a spell. This is what they think. Now, we as Americans get much of our history from the Greeks and the Romans. The Greeks and the Romans hated her. And you'll find a different opinion in other parts of the Mediterranean. Now, Cleopatra also, you see, Mark Antony liked to drink. Maybe not like they show in Hollywood, but he did like to drink. So she started a club called the Indomitable Livers. So he would drink, dress up as a pauper, go into town and scare people and made them laugh. Cleopatra went with. So I do think that they became very close companions indeed. Now, Cleopatra was not beautiful to the standards of the day. We have no busts of her or art of her while she was alive. There is never a description of her being beautiful. Not one. It's written that she has a melodic and beautiful voice, that she had a very sharp wit, that she was wildly intelligent, that she was a linguist, 9 languages, 6 of them fluently. She wrote books. Never any discussion of her being necessarily attractive. Now, there are coins that are pressed with her image on the coin. She would have given permission for that. She wanted to be a part of every part of the government. And it's shown from the side with a little bit of a hook nose. Why would that be? Because she wanted to show that she was a Ptolemy, that she was directly related to Alexander the Great. Now, there's no proof at all that Ptolemy was actually related to Alexander the Great, but she believed it. She believed that she was related to Alexander the Great. Cleopatra wrote books. She wrote books of cosmetology makeup, not Cosmos the star. She loved makeup. And she wrote books about poison. She would have condemned men brought to her. They would be poisoned, and then she'd watch them and see how long they took to die and assess their level of discomfort. So I don't believe, I believe that she did make the poison that caused her death. Did you hear that she got bit by an asp? So did I. I saw that on the History Channel. And one of the reasons why I find it so fascinating is that's part of the mythology, because she told the world she wasn't all human. She was part deity. So she couldn't die in a normal human way. She had to die in a special way by the asp bite. That's what would cause her death. And so for that to continue is really quite fascinating indeed. Now, the children she had with Antony, Mark Antony. She had the twins, Cleopatra Selene, Alexander Helios. By the way, all the girls in the Ptolemaic reign were one of three names. They were either Arsinoe, Bernice, or Cleopatra. So if you know someone named Bernice, it's an ancient name. So she had the twins, and the other little boy, Ptolemy Philadelphus. Now, when she died, the children were paraded in golden chains. And some people thought, oh, that's just not right for highborn children. So they were given to Mark Antony's ex-wife, Octavia. And she clothed them, she fed them, she educated them. They lived in her palaces. And then when the boy was 15 years old, yeah, the little boy died of natural causes. But the girl went on to a queenship of her own, and she ended up marrying King Juba. Now, there's a book that's called Cleopatra's Daughter, and it takes the story from where I took off, where I ended. I mean, it takes off from there. It's called Cleopatra's Daughter. Is historical fiction. If you like historical fiction, you might enjoy this book. And I just thought it would be so fun to give this away to somebody today, because Daryl was so good to me, brought me all the way from Illinois to see you today. So I figured we could do this by whoever would like this piece of historical fiction and like to read from here forward, and whose birthday is closest to today. Okay, Daryl, would you help me figure out who's? Okay, we've got April 12th. Yesterday. Okay, does anybody wants this book and had a birthday between yesterday and today? Would you bring this to her? Cleopatra's Daughter, that is your book. Happy birthday yesterday. Now, the research, I love the research part of this job. It's really fascinating. I always find a literary spine, and then I build on it and need to have everything backed up. This is one that I used. It's really quite amazing. And this is Cleopatra by Stacy Schiff. When someone writes about the author, someone wrote about her, she couldn't, under the threat of death, write a bad sentence. Oh, that was really good. But this picture at the front of her, she's turned away. And did you ever read a book where it's so good, you just keep looking at the cover? I just wanted her to turn her face and look at me and see what she looked like. Now, Cleopatra, her mother or her grandmother, we're not sure, it's lost to history, were women of color. She did not have that straight, what we see with the wigs, with the straight hair and the bangs. She had curly hair, and she loved to braid it, and then woven into the braids were pearls, the diamonds of the day. Now, she would braid it and then put it in a knot in the back of her head. Now, in Rome, they hated her, love the hair. When you see women, Roman women, in art, in this late Ptolemaic era, you'll see them with a bun in the back. Now, the diamonds of the day were pearls. Cleopatra braided her hair with strings of pearls. I'm also going to give this away to whoever wants this book and has been in Florida the least amount of time, who is new. How new are you? 1-year anniversary. Isn't last August of last year? Daryl, we've got someone. So this will be kind of like a welcome to Florida gift. This is a marvelous, marvelous book, historical. And both of these books you can also get at the library. So it's between, you help me work it out, between 1 and 8 months and, okay, are you under 8 months? 8 months, it's hers. Welcome to Florida. Now there's a rumor that has existed until now, and that is that she was so wealthy that she would take pearls and drop it in her wine, wait for it to dissolve, and then drink it down. So there was a journalist who took a Tiffany pearl, put it in wine to see how long it took to dissolve, and then it didn't dissolve. So he left it in a week and it still didn't dissolve. And then he heated it up and it still didn't dissolve. And then he put it in vinegar and still didn't dissolve. Then he heated up the vinegar and maybe it dissolved a little bit. So if you're at a cocktail party and somebody mentions, oh, Cleopatra was so wealthy she drank her pearls, you can say, actually, I know for a fact, because I went to the Beacon Speaker Series. That's not true. She had pearl earrings that each one would be worth a Mediterranean estate. Her wealth was fabulous. Now, when I was doing the research, I didn't want to watch the movie with Elizabeth Taylor because I didn't want to be influenced by all that, space and opulence. Now I know. Hollywood cannot afford to show how she really lived. It was stunning. She had gold, lapis, and ivory inlaid in her ceiling. She really did bathe in goat's milk. I mean, imagine the logistics of that. She did live levels above opulence, which is why many in Rome mistrusted her. So now you know more about Cleopatra.